Hey guys, welcome to another Affinity Video Creative Session. My name is Drue, aka Drue Photo on the internet. I'm a portrait/product photographer, really just a photographer. I'm gonna show you my workflow on the iPad with Affinity Photo. We're gonna go through a couple of things, really just kind of the settings that I use. We're gonna do a little bit of retouching, a little bit of color grading, and a little bit of final touches, a little ooh, you know, at the end. If you want to follow along, there should be a download link down below where you can download all the files that I'm using here today. So yeah, follow along, join with me. Let's get into it. Let's go ahead and open up Affinity Photo. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna hop into the settings, which you will find here in the bottom left-hand corner. It's gonna pop up a bunch of things, but we're gonna wanna change some things. First that we're looking at is this undo limit here at the top. You can change it to whatever you want, just kind of depends on your iPad and how fast it is. I am always a fan of having a little bit more wiggle room with the undos than not enough. So I turn that up. What we're also gonna turn on, for me at least today, is the show touches here in the middle, because now you can see where I'm touching on the screen, which should help you guys out. Next, over on the left, we're gonna go into tools, and there's two things we're gonna wanna turn on. We're gonna wanna turn on allow canvas rotation in all tools, as well as touch for gestures only. The allow canvas rotation in all tools will allow us to rotate our image. It just makes it easier for retouching for me. If you don't like it, you can turn it off. And then touch for gestures only, I turned on just because there's times where I accidentally touch things when I really don't want to do that, you know? I'm kind of used to my pencil and I'll stick with that. So that's what I like, but that's pretty much it. And then we'll tap on done and perfect. Now that we have the settings where we want them to be, let's go ahead and open up our file. We're messing with a raw file today, so it might pull up a little bit differently than what you're used to. Over here on the left side, you will see the open little folder. I'm gonna hit open document and tap on our raw image. What this will do is it's going to pull it into a raw editing format. And what we want to do here is we just want to get a nice little starter. We don't want to go too crazy with the edit, but we want this to look like something we want to mess with. So over here on the top right, we're going to see this little graph here. We're going to tap on that. And something that I really like to do is I actually like dropping down this black point and then actually bringing up the contrast to bring that back. I don't know why, it just gives it a nice little pop. And we can even lower that black point down just a little bit more just to get to where we want. Now this is going to change depending on the image that you are editing, right? It just totally depends on the photo that you took. So keep in mind that it may change on based on the image that you're editing with. I'm gonna pop up a little bit of vibrance, which vibrance really just kind of pops all the colors besides like the warm oranges and reds for skin tones, but I do like a little bit of vibrance in our image. Also, you can see here with our rotation. That's fun, huh? I love that. So it looks good. I'm gonna maybe drop the black point in a little bit. Perfect. And once you get to a spot that you like, you can go ahead and tap the check mark up here in the top right, and that will go ahead and develop our image and throw it into what we're used to, our workflow. Now, after you've hit that check mark, it will bring it into our develop tab here, where first thing I always like to do is a long press, let go, and hit duplicate. And if you tap on this little stack over here on the right, you will see our layers. Now we just have two images. Really all this is for, so we have our base layer where it will have none of the edits that we've done, and we can kind of start off on this just in case we want to go back, maybe see it before and after, that sort of thing. First thing that we want to tackle with this image is really just getting rid of those distractions that we don't like on the photo. A great way to do that is with the in-painting tool on Affinity. You will find that over here on the left side of the toolbar, right under this little flame mark, you'll see the clone brush. If you tap on that again, it'll bring up all these other options, and we are looking for in-painting brush. The in-painting brush is fantastic. It does a very great job. Now over here on the left, we can change our brush size, and we really want this to kind of just match the size of the distraction that we're taking out. You can see that we have a couple little speckles and stuff like that all over the image. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of go in and we are going to take that out. And if it doesn't do a good job, if you two-finger tap, it will actually undo, right? And this is basically what I love doing here, is taking things out. If it looks good, you keep it. If not, you double tap, undo. And also keep in mind that you can also kind of go through, if you see here how I'm tapping on both and it's not getting rid of it, it's because it's taking the same thing. So if we whoop, do both, it'll take it out just like that. So you don't have to go all out with this stuff, to be honest with you. The in-painting brush is kind of the easier tool to use. You can also, besides undo, you can kind of just keep attacking it, kind of like what I'm doing here, until it gets to a spot that you like. But we're going to continue kind of going through each of these little spots, these little distractions that we don't like on the image, and remove them. The inpainting brush, though, is fantastic. Honestly, it's one of my favorite tools in Affinity Photo, and I use it way too much. So you'll want it to be your best friend, I promise. It will be your best friend. It's my best friend. But yeah, we're just gonna take these out. Let's see how well it does with this big section. Sometimes, look, boom. Sometimes it does great. Sometimes, you know, it's like, all right, brother, we just need you to do a little bit better next time. But no, it's wonderful. But yeah, keep kind of going through, taking out little distractions. We can even go in a little bit closer onto the skin. I will also do this with little blemishes and things like that that we want to take out on our subject. You can see it does a fantastic job. Even like one of this like smile lines, this little piece right here. We're gonna take these out. Now, it's up to you if you want to take out the smile lines. Sometimes if they're too pronounced, I like to keep them. If they're kind of light, I will take them out. It just kind of depends on how you're feeling and things like that. Everybody kind of has their own way of doing it. But this does, like I said, a fantastic job of just taking out little blemishes and things like that on our image. And like I said, if it does something you don't like, you can always undo or kind of keep attacking it until it gets to that point that you like. And it just kind of depends on what kind of person you are. But we're almost to the point where we're looking kind of nice. We could also take out stray hairs if we want to. Stray hairs are always, you know, fun to tackle as well. It kind of just depends on the image. I kind of like stray hairs a little bit, also because I find them annoying to take out, to be honest with you. But for something like this, it's not the worst thing in the world, but we'll take out a couple of those. I kind of like the messy feel, to be honest with you. But we'll take out this long one here, a little bit over here. Like I said, we're just gonna keep attacking it until it kind of slowly goes away. Better to kind of do like smaller brush strokes than trying to just take out a whole thing. It makes it a lot easier. Also, something that I've known or noticed when I've edited with it is if you are going over two different, you know, colors, it does a decent job. It's gotten a lot better, but sometimes it's easier to hit one side and then the other, if that makes any sense at all. But we'll keep going, just kind of taking out little things here and there. Really, I just kind of think of this like a little coloring book. You know how you get like a little coloring book as a kid at a restaurant? If you haven't, you're missing out. And if you've never done it, even if you're an adult, you should ask for it next time you go eat and sit down, see if they got a kid's coloring book, because this is kind of the vibe that I get from editing on Affinity Photo on the iPad, and I love it. All right, let's take out that little guy. It doesn't have to be the whole hair, you know what I mean? It could just be a little piece. And you'll start to find little distractions as you're kind of going in through some of this stuff. And like I said, it really just depends on how much you want to take out. You don't have to take out everything. You could, you know, you could leave it all in if you want. Maybe it's what you like. It really just kind of depends on you and what you want to leave in your image. I'm going to do that one again, make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Here's a nice little bokeh spot. Boom. Got it. Ooh, let's take this out. But yeah, a lot of this is going to be just kind of interpretive, whatever you want to do with the image. So take out those distractions. But like the biggest things really are going to be that undo or kind of attacking until it gets to the point that you like. So don't be afraid to kind of get in there and kind of mess around. That was way too big of a spot. We're going to undo, make this a little bit smaller. Take that out. Also, just so you know, we are using a soft brush, 0% hardness, just the normal brush, nothing crazy, nothing special. So keep that in mind. All right. I think we're basically where I want it to be. You know, I could sit here all freaking day and take out all sorts of distractions if we wanted to, but I mean, I'm telling you guys, I could sit here for hours. I mean, if you guys want to sit with me for hours, that's totally up to you. All right, I think that we have it at a nice little spot. Let me wipe down my monitor real quick so we can see a little bit better. That way we're not retouching dust that's just on our iPad screen. So I think that's looking pretty nice. If you tap on this little dot over here in the layers, you'll actually be able to see the before and after. So you can kind of see some of those distractions that we took out. And there we go. Actually, you know, I do see one more thing that I do want to try and take out. It's this little screw thing. Let's see how good of a job this in-painting brush can do. You know what? That works well. I like that. Oh, I saw another distraction. There we go. All right, now we're at a spot that we're liking. But you can see by tapping that little gray circle on the layers tab, you can see our little before and after here that we took out. All those little distractions. So now that we've gotten rid of the distractions that we don't want, we're gonna go ahead and hop into retouching. And we're gonna do all of that with dodging and burning. If you downloaded the link below, I put together a macro for you guys to help you out with this step. Once you have that imported into Affinity, you'll see over here on the right side, you'll see this little play button. We're gonna go ahead and tap on that, and it will most likely be on default. You want to tap over on the arrows, and you will see this retouching section that I set up for you guys. Up at the top, we're gonna tap on dodge and burn. What that's gonna do is it's gonna change the image to black and white. If it doesn't do it, go ahead and undo and reapply. It should fix that issue. But why did it turn it to black and white? If we hop over back into our layers tab over here, you'll see it added a bunch of different layers. If you actually swipe through on all of these, just like so, you can tap this little folder button here and group them together just to make it a little bit less chaotic. But you'll see eyes, catch light, dodge and burn, local, and pixel. What are these? So the pixel here is actually the black and white. All that is a placeholder for us to be able to tell where we need to lift shadows and bring down highlights. And we'll go into more of that here in a little bit. Local is gonna be our local dodge and burn. That's where we're gonna really try and take out just blemishes and things like that, uneven skin tones, etc. Dodge and burn is going to be our overall dodge and burn. Catch light is just because I love a good catch light, and I like to be able to adjust it later. And then eyes, same thing. Now what we're gonna do in order to do this, you'll see that it's set up through 50% gray layers on soft light. Now what that allows us to do is if we tap over on the paintbrush tool and we tap up here and we go to white, if we draw, it is going to brighten our image. And if we do the same in black, it will darken our image. So we're dodging and burning, right? It's just kind of nice because you can do it all on one layer. You don't have to have separate layers. That's kind of the perk of this system that we have. So we're gonna start with the local. What we're gonna do is we're gonna be on our paintbrush. We are going to tap on our flow here because we want our flow to be 1%. We don't want to go crazy with this. It's very easy to go overboard, right? So 1% flow. And we are going to go ahead and dive into some of these areas that we want to kind of lift up. Luckily, with this image, there's not too much that we need to do, but let me show you how this works. So some things that I'm noticing here is like, I want to get rid of this little shadow here right underneath her eye, right? We're gonna make sure that we tap on our color wheel. We're gonna go to white because we want to brighten the shadows. We're gonna make sure that our brush size is about the same size of the area that we're gonna attack. 1% flow, and we are good to go. Now, all we're gonna do is we're really going to just kind of brush over. Just make sure that we are selected on our local brush here. And we're gonna take out this shadow. It's usually better to start off a little bit bigger than getting super, super tiny, but you'll see kind of what we're doing. Now, it's not gonna look like I'm doing much right now, I know, but I promise you, it is gonna look great. And I love kind of like zooming out, zooming back in, making sure I'm not doing too much, because sometimes if you're too locked in, you can overdo it. But even just real quick, you can see that's the before and that's the after. And if we were to click off the black and white, you can see that we have kind of lifted up that shadow to make that a little bit smoother, right? So it's really, really nice. Like I said, the black and white is there so we can see that without being distracted by all of the color. There's something that I do want to try and take out, and I don't know if you guys noticed it or not, but we have this nice little reflection kind of going across her face. It's not the most distracting thing in the world, but I want to try and get rid of it. And we're going to do this with the local layer. I'm going to throw the black and white on just to help me, and we are going to go to the color wheel and turn it to black. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna make this brush size about the size of that reflection. And we're just gonna kind of brush over it until it kind of matches the light of her on the back. And you can kind of adjust the brush size to what you want, what works best. Like I said, small little brushes. It's going to be kind of your best thing here with attacking this. Just a little bit. Ooh, just right there. Just a teeny, teeny little bit. A little bit over here, just to kind of get rid of it, at least on the subject's face, just a bit. And you can kind of go through and, like I said, tap before and after so you can kind of see what we're adjusting. Untap that black and white to see if it's still looking good, which it is. And it looks like I could take out maybe a little bit more on the hair. Just bring it down just a little tiny, tiny bit. Now just remember, if we're darkening, we need to be on that black in the color wheel, and then we will be good. So that kind of took out that. We also have a little bit of this reflection here as well. We're gonna go ahead and bring this down as well, just to try and match what's going on behind, right? We don't wanna go too crazy with that. A little before and after action, check that out. And we are doing great so far. Now let's see if is there anything else that we want to kind of tackle just a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and tackle some more of these little shadows going on in the subject. And we're just gonna lift up this just a tiny, tiny little bit. Make sure we swap over to the white to brighten those shadows, right? And just little strokes. Maybe we'll get like this bigger spot right here. Just a tiny little bit. Like I said, that 1% flow is really nice so you don't overdo it. But if you want to, bump it up. It'll change it really, really quickly. Let's see, there's a couple of spots back here. I'm gonna kind of lift up just a little bit. Now, if you're working in a darker area, that 1% flow is a lot more. So keep that in mind. But we're really just trying to match kind of the tones of these darker spots to the skin tone surrounding it, right? See how we're trying to match that gray that it's surrounded by and not go too crazy. Make sure that your brush size is a similar size of the area that you're attacking. We're also gonna try and take out these little forehead wrinkles here while we're at it, huh? Lift it up just a little bit. And also remember that you see kind of these lighter spots in here too. We can just tap on our color wheel, go to black, and actually darken those to kind of smooth out our image. Like I said, think of it as that sphere that you're making in art class. We just want our skin tones to match. And why this is such a good method is because you still retain all of the skin texture that you captured when you shot this image. But it is time consuming, but I can tell you it is totally worth it. Or at least I think it's worth it. We're gonna go about like a 8 pixel. And remember, if you do too much, you can always go back, undo, double tap, 2-finger pop, that'll undo. Just keep that in mind. Also, remember to zoom out because I will forget and get locked in and kind of overdo it a little bit. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can spend a lot of time going through this if you want. It's really ultimately kind of your favorite or your preference with what you want to do. But we're gonna just try and take out a little bit of those, swap back to the white, go in, take out these darker spots. That little spot right here. And just a little bit right here. Maybe right there. A little before and after, and you can kind of see what we've been changing. Really kind of took out a lot of that section there, which is really fun. I also see a spot that I want to take out with the in-painting brush. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap back on our photo, go to our in-painting brush, and just take out that little distraction there. It's also a way to take out some of these little spots as well. That way you don't have to go through and kind of take out every single one. So this is an option that you can do as well, because I do love me the in-painting brush. It does such a good job. There we go. Also, while we're here, might as well take out a little bit of our eyeball veins kind of popping in. And might as well hit the other side with that. Distractions, right? We can hop back and forth. It doesn't have to be so rigid. We can kind of flow with it, with a little flow zone we got going. So now we'll tap back over to the layers, or the local layer, and now we can see our before and after. And honestly, with our image here, that's pretty much all we'll have to do. Totally depends on the image that you're working with. Trust me, I've spent way too much time on some images trying to fix skin. So now that we have finished the local layer, depending on what you want to do, just something to keep in mind, if you tap on these 3 little dots up here, you will see the opacity. You can actually, I love kind of, finding a sweet spot. Maybe if you want it to look more natural, you could bring it back down a little bit. It's whatever you want to do. I'm going to keep mine at 100. Just keep that in mind. Now that we have done the local layer, what we are going to do is we are going to hop into the dodge and burn. This is going to be more for the overall image and not so much just skin retouching, right? But same principles. We'll want to make sure that we're in the paintbrush tool. To brighten, you will want to be drawing in white. To darken, black. Same thing, 1% flow. Size, depending on kind of the area that we're working with. Now with dodging and burning, it's really just kind of about pronouncing what you already have on the image. We don't want to go too overboard with, making a dark spot really, really bright, because it just doesn't look great. You can do that if you want, but I promise it's better to kind of hang out with the highlights and the shadows that are provided to you and kind of enhancing those rather than changing them. So what we'll do is we're really going to kind of apply a little bit of makeup almost, and we're going to go ahead and brighten up some of these parts of our image. And let's just go ahead and kind of start with some of the natural kind of highlights that we're seeing on our subject. Over here, we're going to hit the nose just a little bit, brighten that up. And it just kind of depends on what you're feeling, right? There's no good way to do it besides just hey, do your thing. If it's too much, drop it down in the opacity a little bit later, you'll be good. But we're going to hit some of that natural highlight there. Maybe a little bit here on the cheekbone, up here a little bit. Right here in the eye. I know there's a specific word for it, but I can't remember. And then we'll do it on this side as well. Honestly though, watching makeup tutorials will help out a ton with retouching. So if you're into that, you should do it. We're gonna go ahead and do a little bit on the lips as well as this upper lip. Like I said, it's kind of we're really just trying to make some shape here for our subject. And we're gonna go ahead and swap over to burning and darkening, and kind of same thing. We're just gonna kind of get some of these edges, a little bit of the bottom of the lip. Really kind of think of it as that sphere moment, right? We're trying to really bring out that sphere, really make the lips like, whoa, you know? We're gonna do some of the eyebrows, darken them brows. They love that. It also helps your subject pop as well. I'm gonna go ahead and hit a little bit of the side of the nose. Like I said, sphere, kind of making things a little bit more poppy. And we're gonna do a little bit under the eyes as well. And we're gonna hit the under the chin, up the side, around the forehead, back down over here as well. Now we're just gonna kind of do spots that we kind of want that same kind of effect as well. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna darken some of these, like maybe the shadow here in the hair. Or maybe we want this to be a little bit more dark here. Or maybe we want the little background over here to be just a little bit dark, almost like a little vignette kind of going on around our subject. Same thing with the car. Might as well make some things pop. Make it a little bit darker here on the dark spots. We'll swap over to the white so we can brighten up some spots as well. We're gonna hit this highlight here on the bottom just a little bit. Also keep in mind that whatever your brightest part of the image is most likely what people will be looking at. So try not to go too overboard with the dodging and burning. But we're gonna hit the hat just a little bit here, make that pop. Really, like I said, play with these natural highlights that are kind of already here. And we're just gonna kind of pronounce them out just a little bit more, just to give us like a 3D kind of look. And you'll see what I mean here in a second. But we're gonna keep going through all of that. Trying to think if I wanna like dodge and burn anything else here without going too crazy, because we can go crazy. But I think, let's see what we're doing. You can see that I accidentally swapped over to the eyes layer. Great example for making sure that you're on the right layer. If that happens, it's not a big deal. You'll be a-okay. But if we do this whole group here, we'll turn off the black and white. You can see how much we've already done to this image just with dodging and burning, right? We haven't done anything else, but you can see that we've really made this kind of pop quite a bit, which is really, really neat. Next, we're gonna go ahead and hop into the eyes. I know that I already messed up on it. It's all good. We're gonna go in and we are going to, remember, make sure we're at 1% flow. Paintbrush, drawing in white. Same thing like the sphere. We're just gonna kind of go underneath the eye just a little bit, brighten that up a little bit. Swap over to black. We're gonna get the edge of the eye and the center of this eye, and maybe just a little bit of the top. Just a little pop there. Same thing on this end. Darken around the eye, middle of the eye, a little up at the top. Swap over to the white, get it down below, just like that. And you can kind of see that little before and after on the eyeballs. Now the reason that I had it for the eyes like this is that if you go overboard, you can kind of bring your opacity down to where you want it. Luckily, I didn't do too much of the other highlights on the other stuff. And so we're just gonna find a little sweet spot that we like. And there we go. I am gonna add a little bit more to this left eye though, just to try and match that other eye that we did. And just a little bit more. There you go. Next, let's hop into the catch light, right? The catch light's the best part. We're just gonna, same thing. This time, I'm actually gonna bring this up to a 3% flow just because we're gonna make this pretty bright. We want it to almost look like, you know, I love a good marble eyeball. So we're just gonna take the natural catch light that's there and we are just going to brighten it like a ton. And that's what we're gonna do on that side as well on the other eye. Brighten in that freaking catch light. Make it bright as possible, honestly, because it does not matter. If you like that look, you can keep that way, but I do that because then you can go back up here, tap on the 3 little dots, grab your opacity, and kind of find that sweet spot that you like. And we'll do about 71% on that. So now, if we take a look at everything, we will see a little before and after, and you can start to see that we are really kind of popping some things. At this point, you know, maybe I want to go back into the eyes and actually bring it down just a little bit more, maybe to like a 20%, something super, super low. Before and after, let's get in a little bit more. Before and after. Starting to look really, really good. I am liking where we're at with the dodging and burning. Now, here's the fun part. We're gonna do some color grading. We love color grading, but there's a couple things to think about before we do color grading. Kind of the same thing with not wanting to attack the shadows and try and make them super bright or make the highlights super dark. It's kind of the same thing with our color grading. Now you can totally do whatever you want to do, but this image already naturally kind of has some blue shadows in the image. You can already tell. So we're probably gonna lean into that a little bit. I don't really like going too heavy on the color grades. I'm a pretty clean kind of guy when it comes to that, but let me show you what I do. What we'll do is we will go back into the macros. In that same retouching section, I have stuff set up for you. You will want to, well, first, you will want to make sure you are selected on the top layer. Once you are there, tap into macros and hit prepare color grade. What that will do is it's just gonna mesh all the layers that we have and make a new layer. Once it has done that, tap on color grading. And what this does, I love this. This is luminosity masking. So what this has done is it has now broken down our midtones, our darks, and our lights into curves layers. So what it does is, so if we go over here, we can go ahead and deselect this. But if we double tap on this layer and we make this super bright, or here we'll go to the red so you guys can see it a little bit more. And we will bring up or bring it down super, super low. So you'll see that it's only pretty much getting the lights of the image. We're not really touching the dark parts and that sort of thing. So what's nice about this, instead of using just like the typical color balance or anything like that, is that it's, you have a little bit more control because you are using a curves layer. So let's go ahead and undo and get it back to where we were at. And like I said, why it's nice is because you can kind of gradually increase things and bring things down. What we're gonna do first is we're gonna kind of attack the tones versus, you know, color at this point. We're gonna mess with the light, maybe give things a little bit of a pop, crunch the darks a little bit more, give it a little bit more contrast. Really kind of depends on what you wanna do. So I'm gonna start with the darks here, double tap on that graph, make sure you're in the master channel, and if you tap on that curves, it will bring up our curves layer here. So if we look at the histogram here, we are going to bring down the dark parts just a little bit to give us a little bit more of a pop in that darker section, but that's honestly probably about it. Now we're gonna go over into our lights, tap on that, make sure we're in the master channel in RGB, and we are gonna do kind of the same thing, but on the opposite end for the lights. Also, if you are familiar with curves, the far left side is going to be the darkest part of the selection. The far right side is going to be the brightest part of the selection. So I'm gonna choose kind of this spot here, which should be a lot of our highlights. You can kind of see with that graph down there where all of our information is. So I'm gonna pop that up a little bit, but I don't want it to go too crazy in the midtones. So I'm gonna bring it back down just so we get a nice little pop in the highlight section. Very, very, very subtle little action there. Midtones, I typically keep the same when it comes for tones. I just mess with the colors on that. So let's mess with colors. Same thing. Double tap on the curves, on the darks. We're going to now make sure that we go to our blue channel, and we are going to bring it up just a bit here to where you can really see these blues kind of coming in, right? Now what's cool about the curves and doing this method specifically is because if maybe we didn't want this to be blue everywhere, we could actually make another point here and bring it back down to kind of get that black in the blacks, you know, so it's not blue. Does that make sense? You see, if you look down at the very bottom of the image, that's kind of where the darkest parts are, like right here. Take a look here. And what we will do is we can kind of crush that back, bring it in so it's more gradual than doing like a color balance, if that makes sense. You could also do the opposite. Maybe you don't want it to be gradual in the middle. Maybe you want it to be just in the lower ends, right? And you can do that and bring down your midtones or the middle of that down just a little bit. Basically, you just have a lot more control with the curves, with the color grading, and that is why I use this method. But what we'll do for this image is we are going to go ahead and we'll delete some of these points that we got. I'm gonna bring it in just a little bit, just a tad, right? And then I'm gonna bring down the blacks to a natural black color. So now we just have a little bit of that blue in the shadows, not really necessarily the darker parts of the image, but it gives us a nice little touch. Now, I like this blue. You could also go into your red layer here because the opposite of red is going to be cyan. So if we wanted a little bit more of a lighter blue, we could just do the same thing, bring that there, lower that, and there we go. So now if we do a before and after, you can see that we added just a nice little blue touch, kept the blacks kind of the same, but a gradual kind of blue color grade into the shadows specifically and not touching anything else. So now let's move to the midtones, and let's keep in mind that now that we have blue shadows, we should probably do a little bit of contrasting color, especially in the midtones, because midtones are really going to be where the skin tones are at. And we want skin tones to typically be warm, which is typically why we see a lot of people play with cooler toned shadows. It also makes sense. Typically shadows aren't warm, right? So now that we're in the midtones, you can see here with the reds, you'll see where we're messing. You can see like the windows, they're not really changing too much and that sort of thing. And so we're just kind of hitting kind of that middle of the image tonal wise, which is typically where your skin tones are held. So what we're gonna do is we do want to warm them up a little bit, give them a little bit of a contrast to the shadows that we just applied. So what we're gonna do is we will make sure that we double tap on that graph. You want to make sure that the channel, we are in red, and we are just going to grab from the middle and we are going to pop up just a little bit there. I'm gonna go ahead and go over here on the highlights and kind of bring that back down because I don't want those to get too crazy, and same with the shadows. So now we just have a little bump in red in the midtones. We will also hop over to the green and we are going to do magenta, just a tiny little bit. Same thing. I'm just gonna bring that up a little bit. I actually kind of like the purple in the shadows a little bit, so we're gonna kind of keep that there. And let's take a look at what we got. There's the before and there is the after. You can see that we did do a lot with that little subtle magenta. It's really bringing in a lot of magenta. So I'm gonna kind of wiggle this back and forth until we get to a spot that I kind of like. This is the really tiny little adjustments. And if not that, you could also, same thing, the three little dots up at the top, tap on that, opacity, and we can kind of squeeze it into where we like. A nice little medium maybe. Right there looks great. Now let's do the highlights. The highlights really depends on kind of what, tones we're going for. We already have blues in the shadows, kind of warm midtones. So what we could do is, we could do maybe a little bit of a lighter blue in the highlights, nothing crazy. We're gonna do really subtly. We're gonna do the red because I want it to be kind of like a cyan. And so we'll go into the red and we will go up here to the highlights and we're gonna bring it down just a little bit till we hit just kind of those highlights in the skin. Now I don't want this to apply everywhere else, so we're also gonna make another point and kind of bring it back to give those reds back in the skin a little bit, but give the highlights of her skin just a little pop of that lighter blue. Nothing too intense. You can see before and after, it's actually so subtle you can't even really tell what is going on. Oh, it's so subtle. Let's just bring it up a little bit more with the reds or the cyans in the skin. Just like right there. There we go. Now what I love doing real quick is we're gonna go ahead and swipe on all of these, tap on that group up in the top middle. We can see the before and after of the entire thing, right? But check this out. If we long press and let go, we can go ahead and duplicate this. And then what we'll do is we will swipe at both of the groups, group it again, and now we will do the 3 dots at the top. Then we will go through the opacity again. But basically this just duplicates it even more, gives us way too much to where we can kind of bring it down to where we like. Usually it's, you know, below what we had it. Like I kind of like right about here, which is a little bit less than just the first group we had. But it's just something that you can do to make it give a little bit of a pop. So if we were to swipe through everything here, just to check real quick, we will group it all. We can see the entire before and after that we have so far. And we'll go ahead and undo to have those back out. Now I do think that the magenta is just a little bit too much. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just take one of these groups in the group and bring it down just a little bit more. Maybe to something like that. Now, what we're gonna do with this is we're actually just gonna do a normal curves layer. So if you go over here on the right and you see the little adjustments layer here, we will swap on down to curves. We will want to make sure that we are on the master channel, and we're just going to maybe give it a little bit of just a little bit more of a pop, a little bit more contrast. And we'll adjust kind of the way that we want it. Same thing, triple tap these. I'm telling you guys, I love the opacity slider because I will just keep going back and forth until I get that sweet spot. Now the windows in the back are a little distracting, so let's try and take that out as well. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do a curves adjustment. Just make sure that you're not on a curves adjustment already or else it will not work. So we will click on group. We're gonna tap adjustments over here on the right and curves. Then what we'll do is we'll make sure that we are in the master channel, tap on the curves, and we are going to bring down our highlights, and we're just focusing on the windows in the background. I'm gonna bring down the whites just a little bit and bring down the highlights even more. We're actually getting some fun detail in those windows. You're like, whoa, you just totally ruined the whole image. Now let's keep in mind that we are just focusing on the windows. What we're gonna do here is we are now going to inverse this layer. And how we can do that is by tapping on this graph here right above the macros. You will see where it says layer curves adjustment. We're gonna tap on that and we're gonna hit invert. Now what that has done is that it has inverted our curves adjustment, meaning because in Affinity, you don't have to mask layers, the adjustments already have it for you. So now if we just go to our paintbrush over here, we'll bring up our flow to like 60. We'll make sure that we want to paint in white because white will be applying, black will be taking away. And we will just draw over the windows. And you can see that now these windows have the adjustments that we made. Now you want to be careful because you can see that I overdid it. But what we will do is tap on the color wheel, go to black. We will kind of get in here just a little bit and we will kind of take away from there, nice and soft. Just so we're just hitting the window. Really just want to make sure that we're not getting it onto, you know, pieces that are too crazy. There we go, take out that just a little bit. And voila. Now we can see that before and after. That will also help you see what areas you kind of went over as well. You can see that I went over this little edge as well, and we will take out that. You could obviously select stuff and do it super precise, but why do that when you can waste time brushing in and swapping between the black and white color and going in and really honing in on this stuff, you know? That's just the fun part of it. But now, before, after, really helps us focus on our subject and not the background. Something else that you could also do if you wanted your subject to pop a little bit, which I do love doing, is we're gonna do another adjustment. Guess what? We're gonna do actually an exposure adjustment. and we are gonna bring it up just a tiny, teeny little bit. Same thing, over here, this little graph, triple dots, invert, paintbrush. Make sure that we're still on that adjustment, that exposure adjustment, and then we are going to draw in white. And we are just gonna go over our subject just a little bit. Really just kind of probably the face. So you can see a little before and after. Just this nice little pop really can do a lot for your image. So, boom, looks good. We're losing light, you can tell, but we're pretty much done. What we're gonna do at the very, very end is we're gonna do a little bit of this sharpen here. Now, if you tap on sharpen, it should automatically do everything for you, but you can kind of see here, this is the before and this is the after. Now keep in mind that the sharpening, I believe, does depend on the image resolution that you're working with. So if that is the case, triple dots, bring down the opacity to where you want it. You can kind of see that before and after there, but it kind of just gives it a nice little pop. There we go. Let's go ahead and see what we've done. Something fun as well for you. You can see over here in our layers that you're tapped up at the top. If you double tap on a lower layer, it will select all of them, and then we can just group them real quick so we can tap the before and after. And you can see that we did a pretty sweet job. But that's it. That's what we do. I mean, and if you wanted to talk about export settings, I just export JPEG 100%. That's all I do. I don't do anything crazy. So thank you so much for hanging out with me and editing this photo. I hope that things made sense. I know it was a lot to unpack all in one, but you can obviously go back and rewatch over and over and over. In my opinion, this is one of the best ways to retouch an image. Affinity is an amazing workflow. Being able to edit on an iPad like this at this level is just so insane. So shout out to Affinity for actually giving us something that is usable on a mobile device like this. I cannot tell you how often I have used this iPad. I've edited in McDonald's drive-thrus. Just, it's so much lighter weight than a laptop. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have a beautiful, beautiful day. I'll see you next time.